talk today with another Love Systems instructor and the head of Project Rockstar, Andrew Sterling, who will be joining us as a guest today. And that's the topic, lifestyle. And I got to say, I don't know if you had a chance to sort of join in on the Project Rockstar and any of the years that's been running, which has been about almost 10 years now itself.
Yeah. I've managed to, I've had the privilege of participating for a little bit, but I've always been doing something else mostly while they're doing Project Rockstar. So Project Rockstar, you're going to find out more about it.
Yeah.
Really awesome experience. Andrew Sterling is going to be with us today, and he is the guy who is the mastermind behind it. And the topic of today's live stream is going to be about lifestyle. And it's going to be about how do you build a better lifestyle, a lifestyle where women are coming to you naturally, a lifestyle of abundance, a lifestyle where all this cool stuff happens to you. Because it's not about like doing things to get a result, right? You have to be the person to get the result. And part of that is lifestyle. Yeah,
I think there's a lot of bad advice out there that's sort of like, do these things in a way that would communicate you're this guy that has this lifestyle. When the really good advice, and it's harder because it takes a lot more work, is to not just act like that guy, but to be that guy. And that takes it takes a lot of work, and it forces you to take a long, hard look at what you're doing with your life and how you can change things in order to best do that, make that change. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So why don't we get Andrew on the line here?
Yeah, let's get Andrew on the line. We've got
start
him.
This conversation.
And let's just go over. Andrew, are you there?
Hey there.
Hey. All right, we got Andrew here. So Andrew, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, how did you get involved in Love Systems and Project Rockstar and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, sure. I've been in this thing for quite a while.
Your microphone.
It's been closing in on a decade. I found Love Systems 8-9 years ago, and the reason that I sought it out was I remember I looked at my life, and I always thought it seems like everything is firing on a lot of cylinders. I work hard. I've listened to what everyone said, but it always felt as though that this one area of my life was lacking. I think it's a feeling that people are pretty familiar with, especially a lot of the guys that we work with, where it's this idea that if I work hard in school, or if I get a good job, or if I get a good career, then people will like me, which is very far from the case. It's very possible to be very financially successful or be successful in any other way, but to still be very lonely. And that's initially what led me to seeking out Love Systems. With Project Rockstar, when I first came into it, it was a very incredible idea. The idea that if you bring enough people that are specialized in various different areas in their life, be it fitness or social skills or entrepreneurship or lifestyle design or whatever those may be, and you bring them all together in one place, that can lead to some pretty amazing personal growth. And the growth transcends beyond just being able to be smooth and to know what to say in front of women, but ultimately, when you want to become the best version of yourself, those are the things that really matter. And so with Rockstar, it's essentially a full life transformation that offers all of that.
Yeah, I remember when I first started doing this stuff, and I met some of the guys that were in the scene, and Old Man Cajun here, and Chris is in the same boat as me. This was back in 2007, 2006, and there's a lot of guys at that time that it kind of relates to what you said earlier, Andrew, which are they were really good at putting on a show to convince a woman that they were a cool guy for that period of time that they were talking to them. And all these guys, as I got to know them, they were guys that were like, yeah, they'd get on dates and they'd get makeouts and things like that. But then every single time after that, it would fizzle out because their real character would shine through. And their real character wasn't at all like the person they're presenting themselves as. And I always found that...
a pretty interesting story. So
yeah.
I've been in New York for a little while now, and I was actually talking to a good friend of mine, and she's a pretty attractive girl. And she when I was telling her about Rockstar, she was like, "Well, how is this different from the pickup guys? How is it different from the pickup movement?" And we told her a bit about what we do and what we do at LS, where the pickup movement at large is really so focused on just say this and just do that, without really giving a lot of focus towards changing what's underneath. And she was like, you know what? There's a few bars within New York City where a lot of those guys hang out, the pickup guys. And you can tell, and she's like, you can always tell because you're talking to them and you get the sense that they're trying to push buttons to get a reaction. And she said there's always something a bit off. Mm-hmm. And so I think, exactly what you said. When you can teach a guy to say this and do that and not focus on anything else, then he may get some results every now and then, but a lot of the most high quality girls can pick up on it. And like you said, even if you can somehow get a girl for that one night, maybe she's a bit drunk, maybe you've gotten really good at your acting, you're not going to be able to keep her around because in the long run, within even a couple of weeks, the real true you will shine through.
Yeah, I mean, I love that too. Like, I remember even when I first started with Love Systems back in 2007, there was still a lot of that even within Love Systems. Eventually, over the course of the years, it kind of got pushed back. And I remember when I first went and helped out at the Project Rockstar stuff back when it first started. But then even when you guys were handling it, you and Andrew, or Andy, like, it was just such a refreshing thing, the normality that was sort of there. And it's something that for a long time, even since when I first started with Love Systems, I was like, man, I wish this could just be normal. I wish this could be just a normal thing.
Right.
Chris was always really good. He was one of the few guys I got along with when I first started because he had that sort of that approach to it as well. But I think since then we've come obviously a very long way. And now, all the instructors at Love Systems, I would say, sort of embrace this approach, or maybe 99% of them. But the idea here is that I think that Rockstar really took that almost in a new direction though, because it doesn't just. I mean, I don't think it's possible to teach the kind of stuff you guys teach in that program over the course of a weekend. I mean, you can't really do it. There's certain.
Well, that's the thing. So, I mean, the beauty about the programs that we all teach through LS is that I'd say a good LS program really it gives you the entire map of you're here and you want to get to here. This is the map of how to get there, and it also takes you 5 steps down the path or 10 steps down the path. You make some real change within those 3-4 days that would probably take you 3-4 months, 5-6 months. In the real world, had you just been doing it yourself?
Yeah.
That said, the road to mastery is a pretty long road, and so maybe the boot camp gives you the perfect map and it gives you 5 to 10 steps. The entire journey may be 50, 60 steps.
Yeah, exactly.
But then it comes down to the remaining 45 steps that you have to walk. And now you can definitely do those things on your own. I would say most of the instructors within even LS did that journey on their own, and it's a long one, but it's one of the most rewarding things that you can ever do. But things like having something like Rockstar is just a catalyst. You can walk those 45 steps in 9 weeks, or if you go about it on your own, you can walk those 45 steps in 2 years or maybe more.
I love that analogy. That's a really great analogy, actually.
Yeah, and so it really comes down to how much do I want to speed the process up, and ultimately, Rockstar kind of focuses on the full picture as well. You've got your social skills, but what about your fitness, and what about everything else? And so it's really that 360 full circle change.
Yeah, and I think it's you're right though too. Like, the best thing we can do on our boot camps is get guys on that path and give them as much as we can to help them. And they're very, I think we do a great job of that. And there's a lot of guys that come out of that they may not even need anything more than that. That is all they need, and they can do it. Other guys, they need that.
I wasn't a rock star, neither were you guys.
And we did fine, And you do recognize those people too, but for your everyday Joe, sometimes you do need to get that extra training to really figure out, okay, in this situation or in this part of your life, what do you need to focus on right now? And I think it's a really good point.
Okay, and I think one thing that's pretty interesting about the summer program is it's really, as we've been on this journey ourselves, and I've been deeply involved in self-development for essentially the last decade. We keep pushing the boundaries, right? We figured out how to get good with game, and then we did everything with that, and then we looked in all these other areas too. And I think personal growth can get pretty deep. You start with what I look like and what do I say, how do I come off, and then you can go one layer deeper, and it's what are my thought processes about things? How do I react when the world comes at me with certain things? What are the thought patterns that I have, and how do they define the world that I am? And you can go one step deeper, which is on a spiritual level. How strong do I feel myself? How connected do I feel with the world? And I'd say, one thing that we've done is, as we've come across different experts, throughout our decade of doing this, we've gone on and roped in either things that they were teaching into the summer program, or we've roped them in entirely and they come in to do guest speaking and whatnot. We essentially have brought a small collection of the things that have been the most impactful in our own lives, and we put onto this program, and you're essentially getting 10 years of discovery within a 9-week span, which is, that part's pretty cool as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
All right, I have a question though, because let's talk about lifestyle.
Yeah.
For a second, because that's what the reason why we're bringing up the topic of Project Rockstar is because it's about lifestyle to a large degree.
Exactly.
And so, what is, like, if you want to build a naturally attractive lifestyle, what are the steps you take? I mean, what are the steps to take?
Okay, great. Yeah, it really starts with you, and as cliche as that sounds, it starts with getting yourself in the right place. And I think one of the shame with a lot of students now, and just the environment that we're all in, is that there's so much information, and there's so much information that pulls you in 1,000 different directions.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's tough because we come across a lot of guys that want to make their lives better. They just don't have the right information in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd say when it comes to building a lifestyle, it really starts with just yourself, and you first have to get to a place where you can look yourself in the mirror and you can say, genuinely, I like the guy that's looking back at me.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that cover? When you think about yourself, your own life, what are all the elements that are in there? You've got your physical health and your nutrition, the way that you look, the way that you feel, the way that you eat, all those things. And then you've got, what's your relationship like with your friends and your family? Are you just with your family? Is it something where you are connected with them out of obligation, or is it something where you actually have a real bond? Then you look at your friends, right? With my friends, do we just hang out and kill time together, or is there something deeper? Do we inspire each other to be better? And then ultimately, you look at your life with your relationships, and do I feel like I have the communication skills to be able to talk to the women in my life and talk to the women that I'm interested in, and to bring them into my life, and from a standpoint where I'm always making them better. Do the women in my life feel as though that they're getting better by being around me, and do I feel the same way in reverse? And I think each of those things are four areas of focus, right? And I think Love Systems does a great job with the area that focuses on women. Mm-hmm. But then there's all these other pillars that you should kind of put in and make a focus in your life. I'd say we get a lot of really successful guys that come through this material, and I'd say one of the things that connects a lot of successful guys is that they focus on one area.
Yeah.
Be it, I'm going to be a great writer and I'm just going to write. I'm going to be a great engineer and I'm just going to do my job really well. I'm a good student. I just focus on studying. Everything else falls apart. What I'm saying is, when you look at the most successful guys, the guys that have the greatest lifestyles, I'm talking about the great entrepreneurs. Think about your Elon Musks or your famous Hollywood actors. When you look at their lives, you look at them, and the attractive part of them is that it's all there. Everything gets a good amount of focus, and so that's the first building block to building this great lifestyle. Being willing to put the effort into these different areas.
And so it's about making sure that you have a balance of different things. You're not over focusing on one thing, because I do agree that for the guys who have let's say the guys who know they've got a lot going on, but they have a bad lifestyle. They know that their lifestyle is matching up. What's probably the reason? What's the common thing? Is that they're over focusing on one element of their life. So they're and usually the guys in my experience, they're over focused on their career and or their education, and they're letting their fitness and their social life go a little bit neglected, with the idea that one day they'll bring their attention back to that. But it doesn't really work that way, does it?
Well, sure. So, this is, I think, I know we've got a lot of guys on this call that are pretty successful, and, I'd say the one blessing that I've had over the last 10 years being involved in LS and being involved in Rockstar is that, the network that I've built with just incredibly successful people has gotten pretty wide and pretty deep. And the one thread that I see with people that are successful over and over and over again. And this is spanning from pilots, this is spanning from entrepreneurs that have gone on and sold their companies, people that have worked in the White House, managing directors for Fortune 500 companies. These are people that I know, and I've really gotten a chance to pick their brain on what does it take to be successful to that high level. And the one thing I've heard from all of them, unequivocally, is that they have chosen to live their life in sprints. And what I mean by that is it's really, really difficult to live your life and to try and do 8 things at once in equal measure and to try to do well excel at any of them. It's just, there's only so many hours in a day. But the people that seem to be the most successful are the ones that say, okay, I'm at a place where I've got this company and this opportunity in front of me. I can build something incredible, and it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. And so they push on the entrepreneurial side and they push on business for 2 or 3 years, and they really push. That is the number one focus in their lives. But I think at that point, once you've gotten the gains from your sprint, the most successful people recognize that, and then they focus their sprint on something else. Maybe I've built this company for 3 years. It's time to sprint in another direction. I should look on building my fitness up. And then they sprint in that direction. And then they maybe go in a different direction, which is, I feel like I've really fallen apart on a spiritual sense. Maybe I want to explore that for a while. And then I want to explore my social circle. I want to explore getting better with women. And the thing is, once you've made this big concerted sprint in one area, even if you turn your attention away from that area onto something else, it's not as though your initial area just falls back to zero.
Yeah.
It kind of stays where it is, and then you work on something else, and then you build that up, and you work on something else, and you build that up. And suddenly, if you've done this right over a span of your 20s, you come out of it, and you've got a great career, you've got a great social circle, your fitness is something you understand and you can maintain, you've dated great girls, you know how to talk to women, and so at that point, when the entire picture is there, then you can kind of divide where you want to put your time and energy towards. And so, yeah.
And I think especially when you're talking about, now I get where you're going from, because I one thing I don't think highly successful people actually neglect any element of their life. Like you don't neglect your health. You stop focusing on it. You turn your workouts down to 2 workouts a week, maintenance workouts to keep what you've got, and you focus on growth in another area of your life. But you're right. I think it does make sense to focus your growth efforts on all these other elements of your life, and make sure everything else goes into maintenance mode. As in, I want to make sure my relationships don't fall apart. I want to make sure my health doesn't fall apart because I'm over focusing on work. But all the growth that I'm getting this year, it's all going to be career growth, or it's all going to be social growth, or what have you.
Exactly. And the thing is, when you start to make progress in every single area, you'll find. I just had lunch with an incredible entrepreneur last week who sold his company to one of the biggest alcohol distributors in the U.S. for $20-30 million a couple of years ago. And even him, he'll still maintain fitness, he'll still maintain these other things, and you'll find that when you get to that point, what is maintenance for those guys is a lot of effort for someone that's just starting out. Yeah. But because they've been doing it for so long, and because those grooves are in there and the habits are in place, it's not that difficult for them to keep the maintenance.
Yeah, I think
high-achieving people excel in all areas, and they make effort in all areas regardless.
And that's the one thing, it's once you get really good at something, it becomes natural and a part of you, and so you can maintain it without having to exert a lot of effort. So if you are in the habit of working out on a regular basis, it's easier to work out several times a week if that's just your habit, and you're not going to feel exhausted like you're training for the Olympics or something like that. It's not going to pull from
it back to LS. That the 3 of us, we could go 2 months without going out. Give us a weekend going out to a bar, and we'll be right back into the grooves.
That's right. Yeah.
Think back to when we were first starting out. You don't go out for 2 months, you're basically starting at ground zero.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's true.
Get girlfriends, and you basically date a girl for a month, and you're back at square one. I wanted to say, and this is a good point you brought up earlier, where there are a lot of guys out there, and especially when it comes to talking with women, they will have that sort of tunnel vision about focusing on that one skill set.
Yep.
And one thing they don't realize, and one thing that I harp on in my programs, is that there needs to be this element of consistency in everything in your life when it comes to how you address these issues. And I remember last year at the Super Conference, you were teaching the inner game segment, and you had guys, I guess, in tears and stuff, and coming out of the room, calling their parents and stuff. And I guess the big idea behind that is a lot of guys don't realize that there's other elements to this than just getting better at that particular skill set. It takes a certain type of focus on every aspect in your life, and I don't think those guys attending that program were expecting that sort of lesson from that. And it's one of those things that I think a lot of guys misunderstand when they not only take our courses, but even certainly try to focus on any of these skill sets, like you just mentioned, is that it's not just about that. It's about the consistency and how it affects the other parts of your life too.
No, of course. I mean, you think about, I think something that's relatable to a lot of guys listening in is, think about any high-octane professional sport, be it basketball, be it football, be it tennis, whatever the case may be. The mechanics and all those things are, if you talk to any player, any NBA player, any tennis player, any high-octane athlete, they'll all tell you the mechanics that they learn and everything are important, but that makes up 30-40% of it. 60-70% of it is the mental fortitude, the belief in yourself, the confidence, the ability to get into the moment, all those things. And especially when it comes to something like being good at communicating with men, communicating with women, being attractive, so much of that is tied to what's happening on the inside. And I think as we kind of go through life, even starting at a very young age, the most blessed people are brought into a world where they've got great parents, great influences, great friends, good genetics, and all those things, and so they grow up in a very clean way. And that's maybe 5% of the population. Most people have these little traumas that happen. Maybe they were neglected by a parent, maybe they were bullied, maybe they were rejected really badly by a certain girl, and those things leave scars along the way. And I'd say it's only when you start to realize what those scars are and to do the work, to work over them, to change those patterns, to change those thoughts, to be able to get to a place where you can get to core confidence and to that feeling of, wow, I really feel like I deserve this. I really feel as though that I am attractive. I deserve these people. Mm-hmm. That will get you the most mileage within game. And I'd say, a lot of the work that we do within our boot camps, within the material that we teach and the things that we preach is that it's, yes, we'll teach you the mechanics, but if you hit the road hard for these mechanics for 6 months, you'll get them down. Yeah. Then it's the hard yards of getting in deeper, and that's exactly what we're doing. We were doing during the intergame seminar, finding those pain points, digging them out, rolling over them, and then actually starting to build some real core confidence.
Yeah. No, I've always likened it to a, kind of like a boxing match or something. And a lot of guys come into this thinking, oh, I want to learn the tricks and the skills that I can avoid being hit and sneak and do a power attack and knock the guy out and then stuff like, no, man. You got to learn how to take a hit, and you got to learn how to be a fighter. Is what you got to learn, and a lot of people just can't accept that in a lot of ways. They're like, I thought I was going to learn the tricks, and it's like it's not about the tricks. It's about learning how to be that person that can step into the ring and be confident that they're going to win doing it the right way.
If you're afraid of getting hit as a boxer, you're going to lose the match.
You're going to lose the match.
Because people can take advantage of that.
Yeah,
like exactly. That's the guy who you just throw a little jab and he ducks and he overreacts and he's off balance.
So exactly, and I'd say the one thing I would say to any of the guys listening is that in any industry, in anything where there's a lot of reward to be had, there will be a lot of people that are trying to sell you a shortcut. This idea that you can do this and give us a weekend and you'll be fine. Say these few things and you'll be all right. And it's not to say that you won't get some result, but it's this is really hard stuff when it comes down to it. And the rewards are really great because the journey and the effort you have to put in is really hard. And you're not going to learn how to be a great boxer in one weekend. And by the same token, to get a good handle of the stuff, it will take time. But what I will say is that when you get to the other side, as a lot of us have, it's the most rewarding thing you'll ever do. You'll learn more about yourself and more about how you think. It'll be the deepest journey of self-discovery and understanding of who you are as a person, who you are as a man. If you go about it with the right material and with the right influences, it's the best thing I've ever done, which is why I'm still involved a decade in later.
Yeah, exactly. So can you tell me a little bit about, just because I actually got the privilege of helping out with Rockstar 1 year, just for one piece of it in Sweden, and it was amazing, just sort of not only the content and what you guys were doing and stuff, but even the attitudes and sort of the progress that a lot of these guys are making that I got to see kind of midway through and then meet them again later on in the year. And can you just talk a little bit about sort of what, the beginning of how you guys started it, how it's progressed through the years, what Rockstar looks like maybe now compared to then, and sort of the new technology, as it were, that you guys are doing with it now.
And then I'll just say once we finish that, we're gonna start heading to calls. So if you guys want to ask some questions of Andrew or of Derek and me,
Start thinking.
Get in touch with Sarah. She'll put the link out, and we will start taking calls. But yeah, if you can.
Yeah. So Andrew, go ahead. If remember what the question is.
Sure. I'm happy to share. The Rockstar, started 10 years ago, and initially, this program has really grown with us as individuals. And when we first got into it, it was the idea of, wow, these programs that we've learned through LS are really useful. What would happen if we took a program and extended it out for 6 weeks? And so the first couple of runs of Rockstar, the first couple of years, were exactly that. Take a boot camp, but instead of 3 days, you've got 60 days. And so what happens at the end of that, you get very good at game, right? You get very good at the mechanics of game. You get very smooth, things like approach anxiety, things like escalating, things like closing or pulling a girl from the bar, body language, eye contact, all that down pat. Right, and so I'd say the first few years of the program were really focused on how can we refine it even further? How can we make approaching even better? How can we work the mechanics even faster? How can we make someone get over the hump to the place of mastery even quicker? And I'd say right around year 4 to basically year now, the 10th year, that's when the focus really started to shift, where around year 4 we realized we understand the game part so thoroughly. There's not much more juice we can squeeze out of it. But we started to notice that with just the game, it's not enough to get the models that we want. It's not enough to get the hottest girls, because the hottest girls are always around guys that have good social skills, that know how to be funny, that know how to flirt, that have good body language, that are dominant. So just by having good game brings you on par with the thousands of other guys that they're around. It's nothing that special for someone that's super, super privileged and super, super attractive, itinerary sense of the word. And so we started looking at the other areas where we said, well, if game is not enough, then what else is there that goes into being this naturally attractive man? And then we're like, wow, when we start asking ourselves that question, we're like, it's a much deeper rabbit hole than we thought. It comes down to are you someone that's fit, that looks good, that knows, and then on top of that, are you someone that's fashionable and knows how to dress? On top of that is, do you have things going on in your life? Is your life exciting? Is it full of passion? Do you have a career where people look at that and they're like, wow, this guy's really doing something different? The business and the entrepreneurial side of things. Then it was, is this guy someone that understands the world? Does he well traveled? Does he know how big this thing actually is? And so we start plugging in and addressing each of those areas year by year. We brought in experts on the fitness side. We brought in entrepreneurs that have started multi-million-dollar companies, that have sold businesses. We brought in leaders from the government, from the special forces, from the business side of things, and we really crafted this very special thing where we bring in all these experts in all these different fields. And then I'd say in the last couple of years, we took it even deeper and we started looking at things from a really deep kind of inner game, a psychological perspective, and also a spiritual perspective as to how at one, how centered are we as a person, how centered can we get? And I think you bring all those pieces of expertise into one very condensed, short period of time, and you come out of it just as very well-rounded person, and someone that I can very confidently say the guys who come out of the program can get those, get the models. But by then, it's not even about the models anymore.
Yeah, well, exactly. And then because you're talking about a lot of the stuff like getting working on your career and working on your fitness and all this kind of stuff. And I think a lot of guys out there are like, well, I can't. I mean, how can I compete with that? I can't do that. You got to do all that to get just to get girls. But I think what a lot of people don't realize is you have so much control over that. You have so much control over your fitness and over your over your career and over the things that you learn and the people that you hang out with and the social life that you cultivate. You have so much control over that. You have and people ignore that, right? People, the things you don't have any control about are like what other people think about you, or what like your ex-girlfriend who dumped you and getting her, like what she thinks about you, or her getting her back. There's so many good guys out there who are wasting all this time and all this energy trying to focus on things that they have absolutely no control over. Yeah. And then they neglect the stuff that they do have control over, like their career. And they're like, oh, getting a better career, working on my career, starting my own business. Oh, that's too hard. That's a lot of work. What I really need to do is bring back my ex-girlfriend. That's going to be easy. That's the solution to my problems. And it's crazy actually. It's actually crazy. It's a huge waste of time. Because I see guys who go through your program. And they actually do this shit. Like they actually are in way better shape at the end of the program. Like I think you might starve them or something. they're in better shape at the end of 8 weeks. They and confidence wise and even career wise. Like I've seen some of these guys. They are they quit their jobs and start doing new things, and many of them are successful with it. It's incredible.
I mean, the thing is, it all comes from within, and we're not teaching anything on the program that people don't already know. It's just, if you look at any individual, any human being, deep within is this pure, powerful core of just belief and ability to succeed and to do things. And the problem is, people go through life and this core gets just shat on. It gets covered with bad influences and bad experiences, and so you get all these layers of stuff that go on top of it. People telling you, you can't do this. Someone tells you, you can't do that. And if it's someone of influence at a young age, those ideas and those thoughts kind of stick with you. And so I'd say most of what we're doing isn't adding things onto someone. It's more than anything, we're removing all the shit and getting someone back to a place of just core belief. And when we unlock that very core thing with the right influences around them, that's when they just explode. And the guys basically go on and do what they've always wanted to do, what they've always felt in their hearts that they could do, but just felt so doubtful of because of the bad influences they've had in their lives. And so, I'd say, if anything, this, the work we do, it unlocks who you are as a person, and ultimately that makes you very naturally attractive to women and to people, just because few people have put in the time and the effort to wipe off all the shit in their lives to really polish off their internal, very nice core, and to be one of those guys, it's a great thing.
I gotta say, all the rockstar guys that I've met, and I meet them all every year at the Super Conference because they always you always get them to come down for that. And it's funny because whenever I meet a rockstar guy, I'm always to this day still surprised at how easy it is just to instantly get along with them. And I mean that from my personal subjective opinion only, because I used to say this, and it's true. I can tell if a guy is good with girls within a minute, 2 minutes of meeting him. And it all has to do with his own sort of the way that he communicates his own insecurities and his own self-worth and how he sees himself and how he acts with you and stuff. And I got to say, all the rockstar guys, they're the types of guys that, when I go out, if I need a wingman or something, and they come along, I know they're going to nail it. Not only because they got the game stuff, but also because I know that we can jive and we can sort of act in a way that we already get along because we're both really secure. And that's something that I noticed that you don't see so much with other guys that have taken other, like, say, schools of training or whatnot. They lack that clarity of their own, confidence. So. Yeah,
it's developed charisma, right?
Yeah.
You develop. Anyone can develop it. It's just we can do it in a very short period of time. And I'd say it transcends girls, right? It's like you said. Of course the game part is down, but the self-confidence and the belief in self and everything you talked about, that has very little to do with girls. And if you get those things down, the byproduct is that girls be attracted to it. But anyone can see that, and that's the charisma that carries over.
Every time in Vegas, it's the difference between, oh, these guys are really interesting, and between that and like, oh my God, who the hell are these guys? Like, that's sort of the level of difference, right? You get these guys that are, good talkers or whatever, but then you get the guys that are sort of got everything else figured out, and it's almost like an aura that you get about you that girls instantly pick up on, and that's the stuff that's really hard to teach. So.
Yeah, I've kind of made it my mission to teach those lessons just because I've seen, anyone is capable of getting to that place. It's just they need the right influences, they need the right willpower, and anyone can change their lives. And if we can facilitate that through LS, through Rockstar, it's great. I love it.
Cool. So I've got some questions here. They came in. Those are the little notifications we got. So let me just read these questions because they came in via text. So we have A asks, what do you guys think of the idea that our subconscious controls us? And so for us to get true confidence, we should delve into our subconscious and let go by doing breathing exercises. For example, approach anxiety comes from past experiences, and for you to truly let go, you dive back to your past and let go of these experiences that hold you back.
Yep. All right, so I would say I honestly agree that everything comes from within. But I would say there is a very practical way of hitting your subconscious and hitting on all those things that cause trauma through your life.
Mm-hmm.
And it really comes down to recognizing, when something happens, what is the thought that I give to it? What is the meaning that I give to it? And how does that, what does that meaning mean for my life? And what I mean by that is the same thing can happen to two people, but if their way of thinking about something is different, they will take an entirely different meaning from it, and it will shape their lives in an entirely different way.
Mm-hmm.
And so, someone that has this trauma or a bad subconscious or whatever is because it led to something, and it's led them to a place where, say, a girl rejects them. The meaning they give to it is one of tragedy, apocalypse, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
the worst thing that can happen. It means that I'm not worthwhile. It means that I'm worthless, and so on and so forth. When you recognize that and you start changing that story, and you catch yourself that every time that happens, you're assigning the right story and the right meaning to it, and you do this over a period of time, that will start to change your thought patterns, which will start to change your subconscious, and it'll get deeper and deeper and deeper. And so I'd say, if your subconscious is here and your thoughts are here, you start here at your thoughts, and then you slowly work your way down through all the different layers over time and effort and exercise. And eventually, when you get to the bottom of it, when you get here and all this has changed, then this will change itself.
Mm-hmm.
To go from here to try and change this right away, I've not seen it happen. I think that's too much of a leap of faith to try and do it with something just like meditation, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and I think, when it comes to these things, first thing I think, yes, most of the bad things you've learned in your life happen for a reason, and usually it's a bad belief that you developed because it made sense when at one point in your life, and that's why you got in that bad habit. But I do think that for a lot of people, one thing you want to avoid is giving too much relevance to the past. Like, yes, it does all come from somewhere, but that doesn't mean you have to go back into the past and fix a problem in the past in order to feel better in the future. You know what I mean? Like, you can take that, let's say, trauma that happened to you, and you can deal with it in the present without having to go back and necessarily relive all this stuff that held you back and put you in this situation in the first place. And the thing being that a lot of people feel like they can no longer control their beliefs in the present because of bad stuff that happened in the past, and becomes sometimes an excuse to not take action, let's say.
Yeah.
But absolutely, it's your beliefs that determine your actions and the way you live your life.
I think that's just it too. If someone asked me, is this breathing exercise going to help me with my anxiety? The first thing I'd ask them is, do you believe it's going to help you with your anxiety? And if they say yes, then it probably will. And it really comes down to their belief. So if it takes a breathing exercise as sort of a catalyst to really ignite that belief that you can change and you can grow from your past experiences, then yes, all the power to you. Take your $400 breathing exercise, and if that's going to help you. But you don't need that necessarily. All you really need is a belief that you can get better and a willingness to put yourself in probably uncomfortable situations in order to fix it. And as long as you can do that and you stay positive, you'll get over it, is my belief. So.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say about breathing exercise is, done in the right way, it can change your physiology in an incredible way. Mm-hmm. Really kind of alter your consciousness just by doing the right kind of breathing exercises.
Right.
And so you do those, and it alters your consciousness, and it gets you in a good place. You still have to take action, right? You still have to fight bad beliefs and do all those other things, and it's a helping tool. I guess the one thing to be careful of is don't try and meditate out of it to get to a place where I've breathed myself free of any discomfort and anxiety, and now I can do this stuff. I don't think that's a reasonable solution.
Yeah, and just for the record, I'm very ignorant of breathing exercises, so probably don't take my word on their effectiveness. I'm sure there's lots of information out there that much better than mine. Do we have another question?
We got a question about somebody's asking, what are your thoughts on subliminal audio for approach anxiety and other inner game stuff?
I think this is pretty much the same question in another form. I don't know, Andrew, do you know anything about subliminal audio and the effects of that, and if that's been useful?
What is subliminal audio?
There we go. So I guess not too many thoughts. The idea that you can that subliminal messages in your mind can reduce approach anxiety. I think hypnosis can put you in a really relaxed state, which can be helpful for reduced anxiety. But I don't have much faith in subliminal audio for doing this. You got to go through it yourself, man. You got to go through. You have to challenge your demons consciously. That's it. Nobody's going to do it for you. And the subliminal stuff is a cop out to a large degree.
These questions about approach anxiety. Approach anxiety is the reaction of your amygdala going into fight or flight. Mm-hmm. And feeling of it's been there for a long time, and the purpose of it was so that you're in more prehistoric times and less industrial times. The fight or flight is really important to keeping you alive. You think back to the caveman times, and so that part hasn't actually evolved. The human brain is a 10 million year old machine that has a lot of capability, but still has a lot of these initial locks and initial pitfalls that haven't really evolved away. And so something like the fight or flight feeling when you're told to approach a girl, or when you're approaching a girl that's a stranger, that actually doesn't go away. And even for me, even for I'd assume Derek and Chris.
Yeah, man. Approach anxiety never goes away.
You can't unwire something that's deeply wired into your brain. You will feel the fight or flight. You can change what you can do in spite of it and how much it affects you, and that's only done through action. And so this idea that you can meditate your fight or flight away, that's too much. It's crazy, right? It'd be like trying to control something in your physiological self that is completely out of your control.
I mean, it's like meditating on working out or meditating on playing guitar. I mean, maybe actually athletes do this. They will meditate on like their swing, and it probably has some effect. But at the end of the day, you don't become a top-notch tennis player unless you hit the real ball with the real racket, and that's got to be 95% of your training. And if you think you're gonna subliminally message yourself into any kind of like significant solution, unfortunately, that's
I will say this though. I will say this. Yes, I still get a lot of approach anxiety, but the trick is what I found over time. It's almost like emotional judo, where you take that initial scary fight or flight and you take that and turn that into excitement. So I still get it all the time. Like if I'm going out, let's say on a Saturday night and it's 10 o'clock and we get to the bar, I'm still going to get that initial like, oh boy, here we go. But I'm able over this period of time that I've been doing this, 10 years, to take that and turn it into excitement. And I think that's something I learned early on, was to change the way that I look at things when it comes to this, is that although it is scary and that's not going to go away, I can turn that fear into excitement by just the way in which I change how I think about it. So it's not about, I'm going to go and I'm going to be put in this really negative situation. It's I'm going into an unknown situation and I don't know what's going to happen, but that's really exciting because this could possibly be one of the best nights of my life. It could be a terrible night, but those nights are usually just as good memories anyway when I laugh on them and think of them in hindsight. So, it's kind of a win-win situation regardless. And as soon as I took that approach, it made approach anxiety a lot easier. So,
cool.
We've got a guy who's gonna get on the phone in a second. We've got a video caller. It'll take me just a second to set this guy up. So let's do. I got one more text question. How do you challenge these demons consciously when you're by yourself? Is one of the questions. So how do you deal with this stuff without having like a support group? Because I do think, like, if there's one thing, I'll tell you what, if there's one thing that's like wrong with society right now, one thing that's like causing a lot of harm in society right now is the fact that men don't have support groups to improve one another, like to talk about these kinds of things. And to help one another through these kinds of things. And we've been separated from like our traditional knowledge and our traditional resources that we use to do these things. Because I think, and I think what we do is we're one of the few places where this happens.
Yeah.
But how do you do it by yourself if you have to?
Yeah, Andrew, I'd like to hear your answer on that. For the rockstars that go through the program, I know you guys have a really strong brotherhood. And you guys stay in constant communication. But for guys when they're out alone and they have those rough nights, do you guys give any feedback or any things you teach them about that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, everything comes down to a catalyst, right? Of course, if you have a support group, you're going to move faster. Of course, if you have a lot of good knowledge, you'll move quicker. But it doesn't mean that you can't move or make any progress on your own. I think the thing with internal demons and bad beliefs and everything is, I'd say something that really helped me when I was really trying to figure this out because I actually had a ton of really bad beliefs coming in, just from a lifetime of just bad influences. And the first thing was I spend a night out, and then every time you catch be cognizant and try and catch yourself, your mind, every time it feeds you just a pretty shitty thought, a pretty negative thought, and just take stock of it throughout the entire night. Maybe I approached a girl and she looked at me a funny way. Oh, I got a negative thought. Or maybe I was by the bar and some guy bumped me. I got a negative thought. Or maybe I approached someone and she's like, sorry, my boyfriend's here. I got a negative thought. And I'd say take mental note of each of those things. And then when you get home, or the next day, if you can remember it, I would write down every single one of those negative thoughts that you had. And I'd look at the thoughts and I'd say, well, this is the actual fact of what happened. Mm-hmm. And the next thing I would write next to it is, what is the meaning that I'm giving to this? If, let's say, pick a girl told me she had a boyfriend, right? If I hear that, is the meaning that I'm giving to it, is it that, oh, she doesn't like me, she's making me an excuse? Or, she thinks I'm disgusting, she just wants to get away from me? Or is the meaning, well, not everyone's going to like me, that's fine. And I'd say you write down all the negative thoughts, you find the bad meanings you're giving to them, and then you try and replace them with meanings that are more positive. And then the next time you go out, try and have when those same triggers come up, try and feed yourself a positive meaning and see how that goes. Obviously, initially it's going to be pretty forced, but if you do that exercise over and over and over again, you'll start to wash away the old meanings and the bad belief and start to replace it with something that's more positive.
And here's the thing. I mean, because, I went through that process, and a lot of guys are like, this is like putting a fake smiley face on things. What I realized is, like, first of all, usually it's not the case. Usually, most of the time, the meaning is neutral. Most of the time, you have no idea what's going on. So when somebody's mean to you or treats you badly, for example, especially, let's say, a pretty girl at a bar that you just met, why is she doing it? Is it because you suck? Answer is, generally speaking, no. Most of the time, it has something to do with her. She's just had a really bad day. Sometimes it has to do with your approach. But, you want to, don't give too much, it doesn't have to have a meaning. Even you could just be like, I don't know why that person acted that way, and rather than give yourself negative reinforcement. So Andrew, I'm gonna we've got a call in. It's a video caller. I think I'm gonna wind up hanging up with you when I take this person's call. So try and stay in touch with Sarah if you can, and we'll get back to you. Okay? Because I might ask this question and then bring you back on the line to answer that. Is that okay?
Yep, sounds good.
All right. Talk to you in a sec. Okay, so we should have Ken on the line here. Do we got Ken? Oh, we got Sarah. What's up? And Sarah's on the line and her microphone's dead, so Sarah's probably talking, but we can't hear her. Ken, what's up, man? See if we can get Ken on this call.
Is this the Ken?
I think this is a different
All
Ken.
right.
Whoa, here we go. Oh.
Hello?
Sorry for the delay, guys.
Oh, there we go. All right, Ken, what's up?
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Good. How you doing, man?
Good.
Nice. You're live.
Where are you calling from?
Where I am, it's very cold. I wish I was down south with warm weather, but it's 30 degrees here in the northern U.S., and I'm freezing.
We're north of you. We're in Canada, so we're even colder probably.
Oh, nice. Very good.
Yeah, so did you have a question you wanted to ask us?
I thought you guys were going to ask me questions. Whatever your plan is.
Sure.
All right. You're from Project Rockstar, right?
I am.
Okay.
Oh, never mind.
So
sorry.
This is. So Ken,
we got mixed up, Ken.
I apologize. We thought you were a caller coming in to ask questions. Well, Andrew was talking about Project Rockstar.
Yeah, you've gone through it. Why don't you talk a little bit about Project Rockstar and your experience with that and sort
Why
of...
did you take Project Rockstar? Let's start with that.
Yeah.
I take it.
Yes.
I took it because I knew. I knew I had a lot of limiting beliefs, and I knew that there was the best way to shatter them, really reach my full potential.
Cool. What
Can say that. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, what? When did you go through the Rockstar program? When was it?
Last year, actually. It's part of last year's class.
Oh, last year.
Last
Okay,
year's
cool.
class. All right. Awesome, man.
Right on. So you had some limiting beliefs, and you got in touch with those guys and took the Rockstar program. Can you tell us a little bit about the experience last year? Like, what was it like? You guys traveled all over the place. What was some of the standard experiences for you?
The experience was surreal. It was like nothing I've ever experienced, and will probably never experience again. It's really once in a lifetime opportunity. I will say that from everything from pushes you to the experiences that you get to have, from the travel to the clubs. I mean, the best DJs in the world, the best from you will meet some of the most influential people that have a positive influence, will have a positive influence on your life. And then from the rock stars that you meet going through it, you'll make friends for life. I've connected and bonded with those guys, have some of my other friends, and even more so now, I relate to more of those guys than my other friends back home.
Yeah.
You'll become a better person. At least I have. I became a better person in all ways.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that some of like the best parts of Project Rockstar, because I know a lot of guys have gone through it and then maybe started businesses with some of the other guys that they met through the course, and they've said, one of the best aspects of it is the connections that you make and what you do with those connections afterwards, I suppose.
Yeah, it's amazing. I actually just got back from Thailand and saw a couple of my rockstar buddies out there, so I'm a little jet lagged right now, but just got back from there, and it's cool because you literally have contacts, all over the world where you can go and do whatever. Gives you options like no other, and then you can.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So we got Andrew back on the call now. Andrew, what's up? You're on mute right now, so unmute yourself. Or maybe I can, if you want to join in, unmute yourself, and we can talk a little bit about the whole experience and have a multiple way conversation.
Yeah, sure. I'm back.
All right, Andrew, cool. So yeah, let's talk a little bit more about Project Rockstar, because are you still doing applications for Project Rockstar?
Well, we've pretty much wrapped them up for this year. Normally we open them up on January 1, and then we take them until the end of February. And then we interview from February from March all the way through April, and then the thing starts pretty much. The fitness program starts in April, and then the program itself starts at the end of July. So we're pretty deep into the interview process. I think I think we were speaking before this, for the guys that are on this call that are very interested in the program, I think they can reach out to one of you guys or me, and we can see if maybe we can try to squeeze them in for a late round interview, assuming that there may be a couple spots left. But for the most part, we're wrapping up selections.
So you're saying that guys who are watching this call, they can email us and get a late round interview if they can send in a late application.
If this really speaks to them and they really want to see if there's something that we can do here, then we can try and arrange something where we'll get an application in quickly and see if we can squeeze them into the interview process. It would be kind of contained within this group, but that's something that I think we discussed.
And so if you want to do that, you send it to me, chris@lovesystems.com. If you guys send me an email and you want to apply for Project Rockstar, you can also go to the website projectrockstar.com. That's where you find more information about it. But if you want to send in a late application, email Chris, CHRIS, @lovesystems.com, and I'll make sure that if you do that before the end of March, that I'll consider it. It might close before the end of March. And this is going to be on YouTube, so if you watch this in August or something like that, 2017, you're too late.
And I think it would have to be by this Sunday, so we give it a week, the 26th.
Okay. Yeah. 26th.
And just so everyone knows, the Project Rockstar itself is actually a free program in the sense that there is no fee for the actual program itself. There is a fee you need to pay, but it covers mostly hotel and flights and all the arrangements you need to make for the 6 weeks that are going to happen.
Can you explain that?
Yeah, why don't you go over that a little bit, Andrew? The fee and the investment it takes in order to take the program.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, we've got a pretty stacked instructor team. I mean, I think it's 8 core instructors that are there full time, living with the guys. We bring in a ton of guest speakers. I mean, it's some really hard hitting people that are experts in different fields of self improvement. Everything from, I mean, it goes pretty deep. We have psychologists that come in and work with people on their deep core beliefs. We have people that come in and speak about different types of entrepreneurship. And so a lot of the collection fees that the collection pool that we collect goes towards covering their expenses. But for the most part, everything else kind of goes back towards covering accommodations, covering flights for the guys. And then also, there's the day-to-day expenses. You're away for 9 weeks and spanning about 4 countries with a lot going on. And so, it's the expenses are sizable by the end of the program. But that being said, if you were to pay for everyone's time, it would be a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
I think the premise behind why the cost structure is the way that it is. I'd say the instructors get their expenses covered, a small stipend here and there, but for the most part, it's we keep this program this way because the initial idea for the program was we collectively bring in a lot of experts into a different field. Everyone benefits, and so everyone's gaining something from this thing being put on together, and so that's why we all stay involved.
Yeah, I like that. And I know that, this kind of goes true for all the Love Systems instructors, but no one really does this to make a living anymore. It's almost always a passion, the reason why they teach. I know Andrew owns a successful business outside of this, as do all the Love Systems instructors. Outside of Chris and I, who are running the company, that's pretty much
also a successful business. But
yeah, there you go. There was a time probably years ago when that could be a profession, but not really so much anymore. So just understand that all these guys teaching you, they're not doing it for the money. They're not in it for the money. They're in it for the experience to help you.
And this program, it's 9 weeks. And where does it take place?
Yeah, what's the itinerary this year?
Sure. First 4 weeks are in Vegas, and then there's 2 weeks in Europe. 3 weeks, 2 weeks in the middle for immersion,
okay.
Where the guys go off and they integrate everything they've learned in the first 4 weeks. And first 4 weeks are pretty hardcore. And so last year the guys went to Croatia for a week, and then they went to Prague for the.
They went to Yacht Week, didn't they?
That was a few years ago.
Okay.
And then the last.
They were hanging out in like a Zagreb hostel. They were balling in Croatia, right? They were going to nice places.
They were having some fun. I think they rented some places in Navarre. So they do pretty well.
Cool.
They make it a good immersion in a couple weeks.
Nice.
And then for the last few weeks, it's in Sweden, and that's when we have a lot of the business speakers, the mentors, everyone comes in and talks on the lifestyle side of things. And so all in all, you're covering 4 countries. It's pretty intense. You will not recognize yourself coming out on the other end if you're part of this program.
Ken, what was the best place you visited last year?
All of them. I think Kabar was amazing. It was beautiful. It was great. It was fun. And then Stockholm, Sweden was amazing as well.
Yeah, Stockholm is great. Stockholm is like the only place in the world where you go to like a McDonald's and it's supermodels giving you hamburgers. It's pretty insane. I didn't see any girl that was not absolutely stunning when I was there. It's crazy.
Yeah, I will second that.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah, and they're all super nice too. That's the other thing. You go and talk to these supermodel-looking women, and you're like, "Excuse me, I just thought you were cute." And they're like, "Oh my goodness, nice to meet you." And they're like super sweet, and you think like, "Are they playing me right now?" But the truth is that people in Stockholm are just that nice, and also the guys there don't even talk to girls, so they're starving for attention.
Yes.
Yeah, there's so many attractive people in Sweden that it's nothing special to be attractive, and so when they leave Sweden, they don't recognize just how beautiful they really are.
Yeah, it's an interesting point.
I've never been to Sweden.
No,
I'm really disappointed. Yeah, I've never. It's like one of the. I've done a lot of traveling. I've not been to Sweden.
Yeah, it's that's the leg of it that I got to help you guys out on back 2012 or something.
Yeah.
Blew my mind, and also the city itself blew my mind. So it was
Okay,
really
let's see if we got some more questions from people in the audience. And let's have a look here. All right, what do we got here? We got is Project Rockstar going to happen again next year? I think the answer for that is yes. How can the average Joe take off 6 weeks of his life to do this? Says John.
How can you not afford to do that?
Well, I can answer that. I mean,
Okay.
so we've seen the gamut of people that have taken this program. You know, I think what we're looking for is we're looking for someone that has a very specific kind of spark and a specific kind of drive. And from there, you know, that spark and drive manifests itself in many different ways. You know, as one example, the youngest guy we ever took in the program was literally just turned 21. A couple of those guys that we took them on at 21, and they were both students in university, and they were the kind of guys where you look at them, you talk to them, and you just knew that if you continue on your life in the way that it's going, in 10 years you'll have accomplished something great. You have that drive, you have that spark within you to just want to be better. And so we've taken guys based on that alone. And on the other end, we're taking guys that are 55 that have sold, you know, their companies for tens of millions of dollars, and you know that's on the other side of things. But you know, from the student all the way down to the 55-year-old multimillionaire, you know, it's the people that have this drive and have almost look at this almost as a calling as to, wow, this could really change the direction of my life. They find a way to make it work. And so we've had people that are working and they've taken sabbaticals. We've had people that have taken, they've quit their jobs. Some people have done that. We've had people that have taken time off school, a semester off school. We've really seen the full gamut. And one of the most interesting cases is a couple of years ago, we had a doctor, an ER doctor, and he was a doctor, so he had somewhat control over his shifts. He rearranged the calendar in his shifts so that he was basically working every day of the week for the 3 months leading up to the summer and the 3 months coming out of it. And he created this 9-week gap where he didn't take any vacation, he didn't take any time off. He just worked the schedule that way. By the time he went back in the fall, everyone was like, "You still work here?" They were confused that he was still employed there. So people get pretty creative, but you know, it's one of those once in a lifetime opportunities where, you know, if you feel the calling for it, you'll find a way.
Yeah, and that's the thing is the guys, all the guys who take this program, they make some serious sacrifices and serious adjustments to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and a lot of guys. I know from the guys I spoke to, a lot of them were like, yeah, took a sabbatical, or I got a job offer for job B, and I quit job A like early, and I recall this one guy, he was, you know, but he had a job lined up for the summer, and then after Project Rockstar, he decided to start his own business rather than to.
I'd say, you know, this isn't deciding to apply and to go for it isn't a casual endeavor.
Mm-hmm.
It's something where by the time someone says, "Wow, this really speaks to me, I need to do this," it's a pretty serious thing.
Yes. So let's talk about that a little bit. So let's say there's someone watching now that is like, you know, I can't make it this year, but next year I would really like to do that. And what are some things they can do? Because by the way, we didn't mention this, but Project Rockstar isn't something you can just, you know, pay money and get into. There's an interview, and you only get selected to be on it. So let's say they wanted to apply next year. What are some tips and things that, you know, things you look for good candidates?
Sure, I think there's two sides. You know, the interview process is really, it's pretty rigorous. The application is pretty rigorous, but all the effort goes into it because we're trying to find people that are a good fit on both sides, in the sense that on your side, you know, we really want to make sure that the people applying know what they're getting themselves into, know exactly what the program is offering and the change that it can do, and that it's very intense and that it's for them. And so the Rockstar website, you know, projectrockstar.com, there's a lot of videos, there's a lot of content there. I would then go and read all the journals. We've kept detailed journals every day of the program for the last 7 years, and you can literally go through 6-7 years of journals and to really get a good understanding of, you know, what the day-to-day of this program entails. And if after reading all the journals and watching the videos, you're like, wow, I really, really want to do this, then you've been called, right? The calling is there, and it's something you want to apply for. And then on the flip side, it's us, right? Well, we're looking into you and seeing, is this a good fit? Is this someone that can handle something this intense? You know, are they in the right place in their life for something like this to really use as a springboard to really alter the direction of their life. And I think that conversation between both sides leads to the process, and the process brings out a class of people that really fit the mold that we're looking for.
It's good. Great stuff.
All right. Is there anything else we want to go over? Do we got any more last minute questions, or shall we call it an evening?
I'm gonna ask one more question.
Okay.
Sure.
Andrew, what's your favorite city in the world to go out in?
The what?
Your favorite city in the world to go out in?
Good question.
To go out in? Honestly, I would say Sweden.
Yeah.
Okay. Sweden is not a city.
What do you mean, the small town of Sweden in northern Ontario?
Well,
It's a great place.
I'm sorry, guys. Not a city.
Stockholm, yeah.
Stockholm.
I knew what you meant.
Okay.
And agree. Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Andrew, and Ken. Thanks as well to you for joining us tonight. Really appreciate your guys' time and giving us your guys' experiences and feedback.
Yeah. We'll be in touch, I'm sure.
Yes, and we'll let you know, again, any of the viewers that are interested in Rockstar this year. Andrew has kindly extended the interview timeline for you guys. If you are interested, just email Chris or myself.
That's right.
Chris or Derek at lovesystems.com, and we can extend that.
And thanks so much. This is Andrew Sterling. He teaches the 10-day boot camps as well with Love Systems, as well as the occasional 3-day boot camp, Simplified Natural boot camp. And you can find him on the Love Systems website, and then Project Rockstar is at www.projectrockstar.com.
Thanks for tuning in tonight, guys. Had a great time with you, and tune in next Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern. See you then.
All right, thanks, guys. Good night.
Take care.